The Sony FX9 is a camera that came out, I think, just around COVID, maybe 2019, 2020. And when it first released, I really didn't have that much interest in it. I was an owner of the FS7. I had bought that right when it came out. But what usually happens to me is a project comes around that sort of is like, hey, we need to use this camera for a few weeks. We'll rent it from you if you have it. And then I'm usually like, okay, if I'm gonna do it, now's the time. So that's when I make the decision to buy something. So that was exactly what happened with this. The 9 was out and the 6 actually had been announced, and I was, like a lot of people, more interested really in the 6. It felt like more of a successor, but I knew there was no way that I was going to be able to get it in time for the project, and so even with the price differential, it seemed worth it to me to get my hands on one of these and start working with it now. And I had a feeling the FS7 had been so in demand that the 9 would probably still be something that was requested, so I bought the FX9, and this would have been in 2021, I think, was when I picked it up, and it had already been out for a few years at that point, so I kind of questioned if I was making the right decision. Now in 2025, we've seen how the whole thing has shaken out. We have more info, and a lot of these are out there, but I do see more people using the FX6. I also see people asking all the time, should I buy the FX9 used? The prices have come down. Should I get the FX6? Should I get the FX3? Should I wait, for the next generation of these cameras? But I wanted to talk about the highs and lows because I have actually found this camera to be amazing. It has replaced my RED. It's replaced almost everything else. The A7S III I adore. I use for all kinds of stuff. It's small, but for anything where we need like a bigger image or a bigger footprint, these days I use the FX9, and I would be open to swapping it out for something better, but I feel like it does everything that I need right now. So the question is the FX9 still worth it in 2025? If you find this video useful, I've got a companion video linked in the description that is like a deep dive through the menu system. So if you rented an FX9 or you're just getting to use it for the first time, one of the downsides is definitely the menus and figuring out what you can do and the different capabilities. So if you want more details about how to use the FX9, check out that video. But for now, let's get into the pluses and minuses of the camera. I always like to start with the minuses because most people, when they're looking on these videos, they're trying to convince themselves that it's a good idea to buy something, and I never think it is. I think if you have something good that's working for you, you should use that unless you have a really strong reason to switch. Like I said, someone is gonna, rent the camera for you on a show for a couple months, or you've got a big run of things where you need it. Buying something expensive and thinking that that is gonna get you the kind of clients that you want very rarely works. It might give you a bit of a flex on social media and a little clout, but if you're getting started and thinking, oh, I need like a big cinema camera to get jobs, all that is gonna get you is basically a mortgage payment for a camera that may or may not even be working for you. So talking about the FX9, let's talk about the downsides first. This thing is quite heavy, so I don't even have a battery on here right now because I use V-mount batteries. I don't know how much it weighs exactly, but we'll take it off. I mean, the nice thing about it is you can put it on your shoulder, but like definitely it's heavy, if you take a look at it here, like it's sizable. And the internal batteries, they just don't run that long. So you really cannot, you can't rely on them because it draws a lot of power. You really need a VCT plate, but yeah, the camera's heavy, and compared to a lot of the newer stuff, the more box style cameras, it's just not as modular. Like the FS7 was actually quite a bit lighter and smaller than this, although it was the same relative size. And I think for documentaries, like for me, I like having a camera that I can grab or put it on the easy rig that I can kind of move around and navigate. But having the option to strip it back to put on a gimbal or something smaller, this camera's never going on a gimbal. I mean, you could put it on like a Ronin too, but it would be really heavy, and it's just, you'd have to strip it all down, and it's just not made for that. So yeah, the weight, definitely a negative factor. The second one is the lack of high frame rate options. Now this is gonna top out at 4K 60, and it can only do 4K 60 when you are using the 5K or 4K crop, which I'll get more into. But yeah, you can't even do the full frame crop at 60, it only goes to 30, which is pretty disappointing for a camera that was supposed to be the flagship, as the FX6 and even the A7S III can shoot 4K 120. The reason I think for that may have to do with the processor, but it definitely has to do with the card read speed. They wanted to keep the same cards that they used in the FS7, which are the XQD cards, but they're much slower than the CFast Express Type A and Type B cards, which are now used in the newer camera systems. So this can't even get 4K 120 write speed, so I'm sure that is part of the reason why it can't output that. The other thing, and this is more just a general negative, which is like, it does kind of feel like more of a legacy camera at this point, where it is very much a direct successor to the FS7, which was successful for its time, but now in 25, it feels like we like more of the boxy style cameras that are modular, that you can kind of rig out and do your own way. Of course, you can do that to a degree with this, but it is very much purpose-built to be, a shoulder-mounted camera, a larger format camera, a kind of do-it-all sort of camera, as opposed to, here's a box and you kind of build it up for what you need for that specific job. The advantage, again, being the smaller camera, when it's just a box, you can easily throw it on a gimbal, and that's a look that is very popular. The menus, very confusing. Big downside on this camera. Sony has cleaned up their menus, I think, a lot on the newer A7 cameras, but these, even the Buranum, I think, has the same one as this, the FX6 does. They're confusing, and not just confusing because all cameras have confusing menus, but one of the things that's really frustrating is that settings that you want or need are sometimes gated behind other settings. So if you want to learn how to avoid those, check out the other video in the description, because I go through all the menu in detail. I still think there's a lot of reasons that this camera is very good in 25 and why people are going to continue to use it for a while. We're going to talk about the positives. Number one positive is just the image quality out of the camera, the color off the sensor, and the oversampled sensor, I think, contributes to it, because this is unlike the other cameras. This is actually a 6K sensor. So when you're recording in 4K UHD or 4K DCI, it is oversampling a 6K sensor down to the 4K image. And I think you notice it. There is more color detail for sure compared to the FX6. When you're grading it, you can tell that the image is a little bit thicker and richer, even though the codec is the same. Another feature that I love on that note, the codec, XAVCI, one of the best codecs to me for the stuff that I do, where it's a mix. Like, we do run and gun, we do documentary, we do short films, feature films too. Like, I probably would not go to this and grab it as the first thing I would use for like a feature film, but I just shot a short film on this, and the image quality was great, the usability was awesome, and on set it worked perfectly. So I have less and less reservations compared to how I felt with the FS7, where I felt it was just not appropriate for that because the image quality lacked. And the reason is because the color out of this camera is just fantastic. Like, the way it renders people, the way it renders environments, the gradability of it, but also just out of the box, your options, like the preview when you're looking at it with a LUT, like, it's a great image. I love it. It gives you a lot of options. And so that was the reason I had switched away from the FS7, and it's why I basically stopped using the RED, which, although it's a 16-bit RAW codec, in many ways it's better. Like, if I'm shooting green screen, I'll use the RAW, but otherwise, I don't like having to deal with the big files. Like, having the 10-bit XAVCI files, they're just lightweight. You can store them more easily, and you can shoot more as a result. So that's a huge advantage to me. Another thing that's really great and important for the work that I do is it has amazing audio features. The preamps in this camera are outstanding. So when you're recording a talking head or an interview, like, I should probably be recording this video on here because just the audio is so good. It sounds as good as someone who is sending me audio from their mixer. So I feel totally confident recording interviews and stuff straight into this with some nice microphones, and knowing that I'm gonna get results that will be fantastic. The FS7 codecs always lacked. The RED, horrible codecs. ARRI codecs are not good. The FS7 audio was usable but not good. RED, horrible, trash. Arris, not that much better. Blackmagic's, same thing. The internal preamps are just not there. So yeah, you can always use it, even like the A7S. Like I use it because, you know, I have it and it's capable of recording audio. But if you want really amazing interviews, stuff that is gonna be world class, this camera can actually do that internally. It's got great limiters, it's got all the settings that you need. They are a little bit buried like everything else on the Sony cameras, but if you know how to use it, amazing audio. It's buildable, like you can build it out for documentary, but you don't have to do much. So I put the VCT plate on there, I throw it on my shoulder. Like in this case, I don't even have, you know, an autofocus lens, although this camera has incredible autofocus. So it's actually pushed me into more Sony lenses, but you can just as easily with the locking mount, like I have an adapter on here to use this kind of EF lens, but it's a cine lens, and it's just great for documentary. I mean, you put it on your shoulder, it comes with the handle, and you don't need much else out of the box to be able to shoot handheld with it, which is really nice. So with the sensor, the oversampled sensor, comes another big difference that you don't get with the FX3 or the FX6, which is you have a lot more lens options. Like this camera can record 4K with the full frame. It can also do a 5K crop. Like this is actually a Super 35 lens, but I find with the 5K crop, works great. I have to shoot in 5K a lot of times anyways because that's the only way you can get 60 frames per second. So I like that as a nice in-between. And then if you go to Super 35, like then you can use pretty much every lens, you know, in cinema history, put on a PL adapter and you're good to go. It's really disappointing that there's not even an option to do this on the FX6 and the A7S III. I run into it all the time. They have like a clear image zoom, which helps you, but you know, I've got some really nice Super 35 lenses. Sometimes we rent really nice Super 35 lenses and you want to be able to use them. So not having that is something that you miss, and having those options on here is really, really helpful. This camera is super highly requested. I still find, you know, for companies from the UK or documentaries produced by big studios, like they specifically request the FX9. That's the camera they want to use and they're using it on their shows. And I think in a lot of cases it's because they were using the FS7, they like having all the various outputs, they like having the various codecs, and they're just used to using it. So I still, as a kind of a DP for hire in Chicago, I get picked up all the time for being an owner operator with the FX9, still today in 2025. The last thing is, you know, these are now discontinued and so they're coming down in price. I mean, you can find used FX9s for $6,000, and for that it is pretty compelling, because if you put this side by side with the FX6, a lot of situations you might take the FX6, but if you have a second camera like an A7S or an FX3 already, I think the 9 gives you advantages with the audio, with the build out of it, with the oversized sample, advantages that you don't get from the 6 that are really exclusive to this system. And also, it being what it is, these cameras are built to last. Like, it will run for a very long time. Sony support is pretty good, and so you don't have to worry too much about buying a camera that is going to be destroyed. So I think that overall, in 2025, the FX9 is still a great choice, and if you want to know how to use it or you get thrown into a job with it, click the video in the description. That will show you the best practices. And of course, if you enjoyed this video, I talk a lot about the technical side of filmmaking, but also a lot about the creative, the business side, the distribution side of being a cinematographer, a director, and a filmmaker. If that interests you, then subscribe, maybe throw me a like, and help support the channel. It means a lot. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.